Welcome back, everybody. The new year kicking off with a high-stakes drama on Capitol Hill. Congress comes back today. The big question swirling around Washington is who's going to be the next Speaker of the House? Fox's Doug Luzader joins us live from Washington with more on this. Boy, Doug, this is an interesting way to kick off 2023. Happy New Year, by the way.
Happy New Year, Dina. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch this all play out today. This voting begins in about 2 hours, the vote to select the next Speaker of the House. And if no one gets a majority, and that's a distinct possibility at this point, it goes on to a second ballot for the first time in 100 years.
Hi, Leader McCarthy. Good morning.
California Republican Congressman Kevin McCarthy has been a hard man to keep up with through the weekend.
What will you do if you don't have 218 on the first ballot?
That is a question McCarthy can't really answer because in his quest to become the next Speaker of the House, he's running into resistance.
He's part of the problem. He's not part of the solution.
Republicans won control of the House, but the majority is so narrow that McCarthy can only afford to lose 4 of his members if everyone casts a ballot, and some conservatives are not sold. If McCarthy doesn't reach that critical threshold, the House will just keep voting until he or someone else gets a majority.
You could have total chaos. I mean, I think the Republican Party right now is in the greatest danger of meltdown that it's been since 1964.
I think everyone will get there at the end of the day.
We will see. McCarthy has most Republicans behind him, and he has made some concessions to the right, offering an easier path for critics to oust him if they're unhappy. And while he might eventually secure the votes he needs, they won't come easy.
They want to score concessions out of him. If there's ever a time to force leadership to govern in a way that will satisfy conservatives, it is now while you have power over him.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of horse trading, and Republicans were scheduled to meet this morning ahead of this big vote today. It's possible McCarthy pulls this out, but he could only lose 4 Republicans and still get the speakership. And as far as we know, there were 5 who said absolutely they would not vote for McCarthy, at least in the first ballot. We'll see what happens if it goes to a second or beyond that. But Dina, you know, if you go back to the 1800s, they've had a couple of instances where these have become prolonged affairs, going weeks or even months before we have a Speaker of the House.
So I'm reading that there is a group of never Kevins and a group of only Kevins. From each side, what's the issue?
Well, and first of all, it's important to point out that the only Kevins are a much larger group than the never Kevins. But this goes back to the midterm elections, that the Republican majority is so small that a relatively small number of never Kevins, in this instance about 5, could derail his effort to win the speakership. You know, as far as the issues are concerned, there are conservatives who think that McCarthy just isn't conservative enough, and they want some assurances that they can remove him if they're not pleased with his performance. We'll see how this plays out when the voting begins in just a little while.
And Doug, how powerful is this position? I mean, certainly we saw Nancy Pelosi in many high-profile examples over her tenure. But how important is this role?
Well, look, you're in line to replace the president should something horrific happen. I mean, it's a very powerful position, and it also is important in terms of moving legislation along. Now, the role that the Republican House would play over the next couple of years is a little different in a divided Washington where Democrats control the Senate, but the House Republicans have plans to really do some thorough investigations into the Biden administration, and they can't do any of that until this issue is settled.
Interesting stuff. All right, we'll see what happens. Doug Luzader, thank you.